All right, let's talk about some important things in the contract. And these are contract dates. Most of this has to do with contingencies, so this is super important for when you're making an offer. You want to make sure you get these right. Okay. So contingency dates. Contingencies work as a safety net. These contingencies are essentially a condition that needs to be met in order for the deal to become official, right? So as you go through the contract, you'll have these contingency dates, and you'll have a certain timeline that the seller will allow you to work through these contingencies. And then as you progress and you get closer to them and you get the answers that you want, or you're satisfied, then you remove the contingency and it continues to move on down the line towards closing, right? And some of these conditions will include investigation. So you're going to get the title. You're going to be able to see if the title has any liens on it or anything. Make sure escrow is aware. Make sure they're taking care of that. Also, seller disclosures. You want the seller to send you all the information that they have on the property. There's plenty of disclosures to go around, so make sure your realtor gets those over to you. You'll also have time to do inspections. We recommend a home inspection, a pest inspection, sewer, roof. There are some other inspections you can do, but it's very property dependent and not always the case, but these are kind of the standard inspections that you want to perform on the property. And then most of these contingencies will be negotiated while you're going through the contract. A lot of times your agent will say, okay, we'll get 10 days for the inspection contingency. So we'll get all of our inspections done in the first 3 days, and then 4 days, and then we'll have time to review those inspections and either make a request to the seller to do some repairs, or get a credit or something along those lines, and or accept them with whatever the inspection says, right? If there's a bunch of stuff wrong with it, but you knew that going into it, that the seller wasn't going to perform any repairs, and you knew that, and it was fine because you're planning to update the property anyway. We still recommend doing the inspection so you can see how much of the renovation you actually need to do. Sometimes it can just be cosmetic. Other times you might find out that you need to redo the entire plumbing, and that might change your mind. Even though you're going into this thinking, I'm going to renovate this property, right? A big plumbing bill might actually offset you and might be not the right property for you. So definitely recommend doing that inspection, keeping that online. You also have the appraisal inspection or appraisal contingency. So an appraisal contingency is basically the appraiser goes out, right? We appraise the property, and if it doesn't come in at value and you cannot make up the cash because you don't have it, that is a way to get out of the contract. Also with a loan, should something happen to you and you lose your job or whatever, and you can no longer get the loan, that's something that you can use. Now, word of caution, if you get rid of all of these contingencies and you just are left with your loan contingency and you just kind of get cold feet, the loan contingency, a seller can fight you on that as being the only contingency left, because you technically can still get a loan, you're just getting cold feet. So at that point, your deposit becomes at risk, and you really need your agent to negotiate with the seller if you really want to leave, or be willing to walk away from whatever deposit you have on that property. Okay. And these contingencies are in place. They're a way out of the contract for you as the buyer, right? If an inspection is performed and the home needs more work than you expected, right, you can use the contingency and get out. So, and you get your deposit back, right? Because if you use the contingency to get out of the contract, that's how you keep your deposit safe. If you just try to get out of the contract with no contingencies, your deposit is not safe, and a seller can hold that deposit in escrow or hold you accountable for that until you release it to them, or something else is negotiated, right? So once you get through contingencies, as you work through those, right, inspections come back, they're clear. You're like, yes, I like this. We negotiated a $2,500 credit from the seller, so I'm happy. I removed the inspection contingency. Appraisal came back, and the appraisal, it came in at value. So now you know that the property is worth what you offered. So now there's only a couple other probably conditions for the loan. And now you've removed You remove that, you've met those conditions, whatever the lender is telling you those conditions are, provide that information to them, and then you'll be able to remove that loan contingency. And now you've got all your contingencies removed. You're entering into your closing date section, right? And a closing date is, you set this up before you enter into contract, right? So you tell the seller, hey, I'm going to work through all these contingencies. I'm going to put up my deposit in 3 days, work through the contingencies, and we're going to close in somewhere between like 17 and 30 days. That's usually the average, right? Now, if you have a certain type of property like or cash where you know the inspections are going to be crazy and you're going to do them on your own anyway, or you are a contractor and you're just going to flip this property, you can do something like 7, 10, 14-day closes, right? Or if this is a crazy investment property and you need to work through some estoppels and, you know, really figure out what the rent situation is with the renters and what kind of contracts they're on, that can be closer to a 45-day close. So just depends on the, as far as closing date goes, the property that you're looking at and what you're having to work through. And also on this date, title is going to be transferred over to the buyer via escrow, right? And it's going to be recorded with the county or the city, wherever you are. And once that happens, you'll be able to get your keys. It's all that happens in the same day, right? And then at this same closing date, the funds will be all set and sent to the seller. Now it's possession, right? So you close, you met all your requirements. Now it's possession time. After the property is recorded, your agent will be able to give you the keys. So congratulations, you now own a new property. Don't forget to call utilities to set them up with the property. You're most likely going to need electricity and gas. Escrow and title will take care of the rest, but do call them, make sure they are taking care of all that, and that in electricity and gas is all you do need indeed, right? So if you don't know who the providers are for that, ask your realtor or escrow, and they will get that information to you. So that's a little bit about the closing dates. Let's move on to the next video.